Hello, everybody. Welcome back from the SBOMs and supply chain security session. I hope you found some ideas and inspiration to secure your supply chain. Now, going on to the next session, it is best practices in DevSecOps. DevSecOps is a very popular topic. In fact, in AppSecCon 2022, it was the most popular topic. And one of the speakers from that session is here this time to talk about it. So I'll give a little bit more information, but before that, I'd like to give a shout out and a word of thanks for one of the diamond sponsors for AppSecCon. It is Checkmarx. So Checkmarx, as you know, he's a leading application security provider, and their cloud native Checkmarx One platform helps enterprises shift everywhere, left, right, center. It helps you shift everywhere and secure application development across all the phases and for every application. And it helps meet the dynamic needs of CISOs, developers, and AppSec teams. So they have about 1,800 customers around the world, and which includes 60% of the Fortune 100 enterprises. All right. So now coming back to the session that we had on the best practices in DevSecOps, the speaker that I was talking about is Sangram Dash, who is head of information security at CSense, and he's joined by Mithun Rajoor, who is global head of application and infrastructure security at S&P. This, as I said, is a very hot topic. I'm sure many of you are very eager to know what they're going to cover in this. So without further ado, let's go listen.
Hello, everyone. I'm so thrilled and excited to come back again at AppSecCon this year. And I'm here going to share, along with my co-presentator, Mithun, the best practices in DevSecOps implementation or the process. This is a very critical element in this story or in this conference would be primarily because last year this was well received and in fact a highly rated talk. And I hope you will like it this year as well. It has been refreshed with new set of understanding, tooling, or as well as a little bit with respect to AI. So I'm super excited to present this along with my co-partner in crime and co-presentator, Mithun. Mithun, let's do it.
Sure. Thanks, Sangram.
Yeah, so I'll make a quick introduction about my background, and then I'll hand it over to Mithun to talk about his background. So I've been in the space for a while, primarily focused on identity, product security, and various other things. Most recently, I was at CDK Global to lead their cybersecurity function. And I've spent several years with companies like PayPal, Silicon Valley Bank, and others. I have an MBA from UCLA, as well as I've got a few certifications, CISSP, CISM, and a few others. I'm always willing to learn and grow through various processes like these platforms, and more than happy to get any feedback online or offline as we about this subject. That said, over to you, Mithun.
Yeah, thanks, Sangram. Again, excited and thrilled to speak at AppSecCon. My name is Mithun. I currently head the application and infrastructure security team. Pretty much hands-on experience in application security, offensive security, security architecture and engineering, vulnerability management, network security, and cloud security, and last but not the least, the DevSecOps. So I'm a passionate Java developer, hold expertise in Java and programming, and so as cloud as well. I try to do a lot of 𝗖𝗍 programming, and that has kept me thrilled to be a little abreast in the cyberspace. I like to preach security and train developers because I do believe that developers are first line of defense in any cyber security programs that we have in space. And I've also worked on major projects and initiatives such as lift and shift of technology modernization, to be more precise, and journey to cloud and have worked with a lot of fun stuff related to cyber incident response teams. So that's about me. Thank you.
Wonderful, Mithun. And Mithun and I both are part of Purple Book community. We do spend quite a bit of time interacting with our fellow practitioners. That said, let's talk about this. This has been a bit crowded this time around because I dropped in a few more things in here. But the story is going to be pretty simple. This is complex, as well as there is aspect of simplification which is happening in the industry. So if you look at the software creation process or code creation process and deployment of that and management of that, ultimately what you're looking at is how do we have a good soft orchestrated platform for customer to use while we are minimizing the risk of security, minimizing the risk which gets introduced because of the speed. So if you look at this model, this is nothing new, but what has happened in the last several years, roughly 7-8 years, there are tons of point solutions coming out there. They're doing what they do well. And together, we as practitioners need to bring everything together to achieve the objective, right? So that said, if you just look at a very simple threat modeling and essentially code creation process, obviously GitLab, GitHub, those are the big ones. Then get into the software composition analysis, static code analysis. You've got a bunch of those platforms who are doing the scanning and essentially flagging what is not right. Then the build process, CodeCar, BuildKite, MergeQ, and many other platforms you're using it, or you use the products from Git and GitHub and GitLab as well. So through that process, you're also looking at, from a classic sec standpoint, you're looking at dynamic as well as Barracuda and other products which are being used. Of late, if you look at what Armor Code and other platforms are doing is they're bringing a bunch of these data, which is pretty much living in those tools in a very siloed fashion together, right? And start building this orchestration and build the repetitive processes and steps to achieve efficiency in the process, right? The facts are facts that there will be not many security practitioners to support the ever-increasing development team, right? So we don't get that kind of resources in our organization. So how do we do? Like, we talk about 1 to 100 developer ratio, or sometimes we talk about even 1 to 200 security professional versus developer ratio. The other problem is you as a security practitioner may not know a lot of things because it's very complex. The tech stack is getting complex. A lot of new software is being used. So you got to scale your operation. So classic DevSecOps process, look at classic code development, build and test, and deployment and release. So if you look at this entire process, even on the operation side of it, we got to be smart about getting the signals we get through various tooling and put it together. The other aspect of it, I'm going to quickly touch about that, is this all DevSecOps? Some will argue, no, it's not. In my view, if you're looking at security and you're looking at orchestration of a product on whatever it is, right? End of the day, customer is the one who is doesn't even know what's happening on the back end, right? But we are the one who are orchestrating this. We are giving this service. We got to ensure that security is integrated into every aspect of it. Some would say, is SIEM/SOAR MDR part of DevSecOps process? In my view, yeah, that's the security service we provide. And early detection and response is what is very interesting. There is some innovation happening there. There is one company I looked at, Expel, very interesting. Even Thailand article, Fred Henry, they're the one doing MDR services. The story goes on. I'm going to pause here a little bit. I'm sure, Mithun, you have your view of this world, and every aspect of it probably is a talk for 5 to 7 minutes. But what do you think? This is kind of one quick cheat sheet I'm giving on a screen to some people. Sure. They can pick and choose and use what they feel is right for their organization.
Yeah, and thanks, Sangram. I think the schematics of the DevSecOps slide is important. Now that you see that Sangram has shared the slides along with the components that needs to be used, What's important, to operate within DevSecOps is, how do you prioritize development? How do you prioritize security? And how do you prioritize operations? How do you actually run it? And with what tooling nuances, or with what process nuances, or with what workflow nuances you try to run is what's going to matter. So simple example, if you guys are using Azure DevOps, there's actionable workflow using Azure stages. And it helps you to go through a stage by stage and a gating process for security, right? Like anything that's been code written, whether it's cloud or whether it's infrastructure. At the end of the day, when you deploy the code or your infrastructure to production, what matters is that comprehensive lens of security with a wetted governance, if you will, to ensure that things are kept under hygiene so that you meet the compliance requirements and security requirements. So this is a bare framework. So please do not consider us that we're trying to put in vendors. These are best practices that we want to advocate to people that one could use in terms of implementing DevSecOps.
Yeah. And I want to kind of also advise to think about repeatable processes. So in the sense that if you find a particular security issue in some areas, and it's the same fix is required in a future date, like once you fix something, same issue appears after 6 months, you're not scrambling to figure out what did we do, right? So if you use some sort of Armor code is the one I put in multiple areas. And the reason behind that is once you fix something, it's in the system. You essentially know the steps you took to fix it. And you can leverage that. Like it's bringing the efficiency and some aspect of even tools consolidation. Like, do I have duplicate visibility into one particular area? If it is, like, why do I need a couple of tools, right? So those are the kind of things to think about. And this is something, I'm always tweaking. If somebody says, what is your preferred, then I will probably draw a bunch of these logos and basically say that this is my preferred stack. But the preferred stack is always dependent on the tech stack, right? So it's hard to essentially say that this is the preferred stack for me because, this is what I like. Tech stack and the money you have to spend and the infrastructure you operate, right? Cloud versus on-prem and old tech versus new tech. That will determine what is your preferred stack, DevSecOps stack in your organization. Cool. So next one is your area of expertise, Mithun. Why don't you walk us through that?
Oh, absolutely. The slide, what we're going to talk about is DevSecOps. I tried breaking in terms of roles and responsibilities, how a developer, how a security team, how an operational team should be implementing this comprehensive process. So if you look at it, the center circle represents the secure compliant software, and it's a coordination between 3 stack of people that we have in place. Now let's talk about the dev first, right? Like obviously, if I talk to a developer, since I'm a developer, I would be concerned on, what are my, tools and technologies that I've been using? What are the source control and branch merging strategies? How do I, merge my branches? How do I keep version control track of it? How do I know, what's been deployed versus what's been an incremental deployment? So that's what source control and branch merging strategies are going to talk about, like I touched a little. Then your threat modeling for design requirements. I've spoken in multiple forums, and I did say that start left is important. It's not shift. Shift is a term where we kind of want to adjust to our existing, legacy stack of technologies or existing set of ecosystem. But you should be starting left because implementing security design principles and preaching security in design is the right way of doing security. And this is something, the chief technology officers, the board of directors, the BISOs and the CIOs should be aware that in order to do security, it's just like a non-functional effort, including in your PI planning or agile process. Now, creating coding standards and framework and guidelines. Obviously, as a developer, you should be knowing, hey, if I'm trying to code for an input, what are the best practices that I need to take? If I'm trying to code for a session implementation, what should I be doing? If I'm trying to do a logging, what kind of exception handling mechanism should I be implementing? If I'm trying to query a database, what kind of access control should I be implementing? So it's going to get into the deep level of expertise within the development ecosystem that the cybersecurity teams should be preparing, for the developers to consume. And it's a shared responsibility. And factor stories, user stories for the security in the agile process or the agile release trains. And what that means, security should be flagged as a blanket dependency within the PI planning process. Obviously, a lot of people use safe agile framework and different agile, process models. Security should be baked in by default. There has to be a dependency, giving a word of caution for security. Hey, we're trying to develop these features. Does it have security implications? If yes, should we flag it to the security team? The project managers and the PMO organization should be doing a great job of flagging this during the Scrum or the standard meetings, what they have with their developers and the operational teams. And last but not the least is create dependency for security. Obviously, we need to have a dependency to ensure that the development requirements related to security are catered. Now, let's talk about security on the right side. Implementing trust but verify. Obviously, we empower our developers. We really trust them. But there's a concept called as trust but verify. We trust you, but we would like to validate from an independent control perspective. So that's where your static code analysis, software composition analysis, infrastructure as code, dynamic vulnerability assessments, your container security, your CSPMs, all of that from a security gating mechanism will come to play. And more so important, not just scanning and testing, but what's the action loop are you creating to the developers? It's pretty much important that you create the action loop to the developers in the sense like try to file defects, ensure that the security defects have story points and they have weights so that we can work on it on addressing the security depth or the technology depth that developers have. So that's a most important solution that I think in my mind that we should be creating an action loop to the developers for the list of security issues identified. Now, implement compliance as code frameworks. Example, build failure. Some organization, they try to implement compliance as code. Some organization give attestation that, okay, we're compliant to OWASP practices. We're compliant to the NIST practices or, build any kind of custom framework that works for your organization and your regulators and ensure that there is a healthy build process. Like if you're not deploying your code, if there are critical and high vulnerabilities on your external application, that's just an example, but you can work it out on the outliers of it. Then security champions and Scrum, when security requirements are flagged out, you definitely need security champions. They will ensure that it gets flagged or provide guidance and whatever requirements are needed from a security perspective, because central cybersecurity teams cannot be in each and every Scrum and software development lifecycle. The governance and maturity, this is for the executives. You can measure the build burst maturity, the hygiene of builds over a period of time. You can kind of measure the aging clock and how compliant is your code that's been deployed into production. That's another way of doing security proactively. Now, last but not the least, if you talk about operations, obviously, code signing, every build that's going to production, it needs to have an attestation. Yes, security has looked into it and there's no complaints. And that kind of attestation can be introduced by a code signing process. And obviously, the cyber defense teams like the SIM and SOAR and the SOC or even the CERT, ensuring that there is comprehensive monitoring and action on monitoring that could lead into in case of any security incidents. Your security compensating controls is classified as operations because they are the controls that lie in production. Yeah. And your fusion center, I kind of have that concept, but really envision to work on building a fusion center where all these teams are connected and that can be served as capabilities. And obviously, your continuous monitoring on 0 days, what kind of 0 day pops in. There's a lot of fun going on the internet, and that's something what the operations and the security team should be looking for. And I'm sure that this is just a core framework. And Sangram, feel free to add, any outliers that you may think could be looked into a different perspective.
No, this is great, and thank you for putting the context and walking through some of the checklist-driven approach to this. The way I think about is, secure compliant software is not security team's responsibility. Like, we happen to be the ones who are watching, just trying to find some mistakes or some oversight which might have happened. But end of the day, it is the people who are creating the software. They're part of the software creation process, right? From a product manager to an engineer to a developer to architect. All of them are jointly responsible to make sure that we have a good quality software product out there. We're definitely not talking about hardware because my background is not from hardware. So we are all focused on software, but that similar concepts do apply to even combination of hardware, software, security in the industry. That said, let's move on to the next thing. Our world is changing. We all know that, and obviously DevSecOps and the process, these tooling, and the way we have enabled software creation is going to also change. And I'm going to just give a little bit of early into our thinking process. I believe there's a lot to learn, lot to understand what's going to be the impact. But I don't think it is new per se. ML has been around for a long time. But what's new is these transformers or the black boxes where you put some input and you get some output, but you do not have control over the output, in the sense that we do not know, let's say in a simple banking fraud or credit card fraud kind of transaction, good old days, we have set of rules for fraud. Now, if the machine is thinking differently, then essentially the input can be changed to bypass the fraud, right? So I think there will be some interesting thing happening in the industry. But the way I see it is in two buckets. One, obviously, the people are trying to defend and the people are trying to misuse it, right? For the attacker's point of view. The defenders, we will learn quickly, so as attackers, but we will learn quickly how to respond. We will use this detection, our ability to detect and respond will definitely change, right? And we will be able to quickly determine, let's say 0 day, right? It comes out and we will be able to find out where all those defects are out there. And probably we'll be able to respond much faster. Some aspect of auto-remediation, I think some would say that it has to be controlled auto-remediation. It cannot be, just go and fix and bring a server down or do things like that. So that will be something to think about. And obviously, massive scale of data analysis and pattern creation, which is happening, by the way. If you look at a lot of, there is a reason why 90% of the emails get blocked in our corporate environment, because somebody is essentially looking at those incoming emails with it, where it is coming from, and essentially trying to block those for better protection, right? So that's the defender's point of view. From attacker's point of view, I'm sure Mithun will have a few things to say here, but I'll run through this very quick. You can literally poison the input data to get bad output, right? So I think there have been concepts where we are talking about noise being added to pictures, and we saw those most published articles out there. But that is a problem, right? How do you control the data which is being used to train these models, and what happens there? New attack methods will come, which I don't think we all know how it's going to be, but it will be something definitely very different. It could be from a velocity standpoint, it could be very different. From finding out the so-called backdoors and misusing those much faster is probably something going to be happening, and which is going to obviously create high velocity of the attack, right? So the future attacks will be more impacting, and impact when I say it is going to be damaging in the nature, because you will not have much time to respond, or you've got to be better at that. And certain things like automation around malware deployment, and things like crafting. Oh yeah, this is an interesting one that I started seeing people with the emails we used to with the bad, or the emails which we thought always phishing is because of the bad grammar or probably the construct, the way they write it. is going to be better. So those will probably bypass our human eyes in terms of phishing attempts. So these are kind of some little bit of high level how it's going to change the SecOps process, because all our tooling need to kind of understand these threat vectors and essentially account for those, how to detect these activities. So exciting times. What do you think, Mithun? What's your point of view as you see how and where DevSecOps is going to change?
Sure. I think from a artificial intelligence perspective and the large language models that the buzz is in the industry right now, it's fairly nothing but like a programming construct. It's just how you use these models for your regular business use case on a day-to-day is what matters, right? Like obviously, AI helps you to bring that acceleration with a behavior heuristic pattern with set of algorithms, and the large language models can help you answer questions in a very ease and user interfaceable way. So AI, again, it's something that is evolving in this space. Obviously, when it comes to DevSecOps, like you just mentioned, the detection patterns, the attacker patterns, the alerting patterns, and how the acceleration model can be implemented from a security and operations perspective. Like AI is definitely going to play a key important role. And there's definitely opportunities, because as we are learning all these models, if you look at the two native cloud service providers, AWS and Azure, have released the prototypes for the large language models. OpenAI within the Azure space and Bedrock or the other generative AI platforms within the AWS space. So again, like these require security construct, and if built with a security mindset, obviously they will enhance the acceleration, whether it's in development or in security or in the operational timelines. But there's definitely a future, and there is definitely scope and more for discussion.
And more opportunity for us, particularly in the people in security space, because we got to be thinking one step ahead to what's happening and what can possibly go wrong. So this is going to be super exciting. So going on to the next, and this is the last slide, and I'm looking at the time here. This is a bit of a story I wanted to kind of share how from a market point of view, right? So what's going on out there is, obviously there is two buckets, right? AI of cybersecurity and security of AI, right? So AI uses in cybersecurity, we just talked about that, like faster detection and possibly remediation and things of that nature. But the security of AI, who is responsible for the security of AI? Let's say we are just using a model. It's not us, it's someone else, right? So if you're looking at that, and I'm jumping to the last bottom row here, is AI researcher and the technologists, the company who are building the products, so they are responsible for the security. So it's going to be a bit of a black box for many of us, because we are going to heavily rely on how they have built the security features into the product itself. And that is a use case where I think it's something we have to watch out for. I believe the market opportunity for both of these domains are huge, right? I think AI uses in cybersecurity has been there for a long time with ML use case and others. That is definitely its high potential. But I think looking at the AI product or the security of AI itself, the potential is high, very high, because there will be a lot of negative training to the model that will happen, right? If you see this pattern, don't do this, right? So the way we'll train these models, essentially proactively identifying the false, I would say positive, and ensure that the models are behaving right? So there will be some aspect of training which will go into these models. And then if you look at obviously the use cases can be, I'm trying to defenders and attackers, but it depends on how that's being used. But obviously it's going to be will have good use as well as bad use of that. And so again, I think from a risk mitigation standpoint, I'm looking at what is called trusted AI versus untrusted AI, right? Like, I mean, who is which model is trusted, which model is authenticated in a way, validated in a way that we should be using it in our business use cases, because we can't afford to go wrong with our customers, right? So it's okay to ask a question and do a search and then use your own judgment to use that information. But when you give these models the power to make a change or do auto remediation or block a transaction or don't approve a loan for somebody, that's a problem, right? So we have to be very careful, as well as we will have, I would say, accountability or expectation of us to make better use of these products in our corporate environment. So a lot to happen. I'm sure this is going to be evolving as we're talking about, but super excited about the future. So that said, Mithun, what anything you want to add to this? This is probably
No, I think,
high level at this point.
Yeah, the nuances and areas of interest would be security of AI itself, because AI has already been in such a long time in the space. The security of AI is pretty important, and the fundamentals are obviously there's a model and there's an input that you're trying to feed that model for training and ensuring that the model gives appropriate input. So the nuances of security needs to be broken down. When the model was built, like what are the coding practices that were used, and how secure is the model in trying to take the input from the user and give the appropriate input, which is secure, back to the user. And also user plays an important role over here, is because you're trying to feed good inputs and bad inputs to the AI. Obviously, the AI should be smart enough or well trained with security, or with well trained and implemented with security controls, so that it unfilters or it filters the bad input and it unfilters the good input and have it let go so that the user can process it. So there's fundamental nuances that I think wherein security of AI would be hot for some time in terms of discussions and buzz, in terms of standards, in terms of framework and whatnot. But like you said, there's definitely opportunity for AI and DevSecOps.
Wonderful. And a lot of standards are coming. Obviously, NIST has something. Even I saw something from 𝗖𝗵𝗽𝗍𝗍 in terms of a checklist. So industry is thinking, and responses are being built to some degree, the way I see. That said, I think we are coming to the end of our presentation. Thank you very much for listening to us, and looking forward to sharing enhanced thought process next year as well. Thank you, Mithun, for being with me during this presentation. I appreciate your insights. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thanks, Sangram. Thank you for the Purple Book community. Tune us in the AppSecCon 2023, and we look forward for your feedback and comments.
Thank you.